What up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of These Corona Times. You are locked in with your girl Tiffany and Brandon.
What's good?
Yeah, and we want to introduce to some and present to others Dr. Simone Lavelle Bruce. Yay!
Thank you.
Dr. Bruce.
We finally have a doctor in the house.
Yes, finally.
So we want to thank you guys so much. I cannot believe that we're on episode 4 of These Corona Times. Yep, this is the 4th one. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Our numbers are always surprising to us. We were talking yesterday about the number of views, and we're just impressed about what you guys are doing, how you guys are showing up and watching us from week to week. We appreciate the feedback, the likes, the shares. Please keep doing that. We're just happy you guys are tuning in.
Yes, thank you all so much for the support.
We definitely feel the love. I mean, I've been getting, text messages, people just talking to me about how episodes and things we've talked about have touched them. So we definitely appreciate all the support.
Yep. So today we're going to talk about being Black in these Corona times. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but just introducing the episode to you early. But before we do all that, Simone's got to get us caught up on our goals, because I don't know, did we fail or did we succeed this week?
Let's see. I don't even remember y'all's goals. Brandon, what were your goals and how did you do?
Man, mine was to continue to get back into the Bible and to study a little bit more. And I failed this week.
Oh.
I did not do very well with that. I didn't listen to any sermons. I didn't do my Bible study. I just slacked this week. And I can't blame it on time. I can't, because I had time to watch my movie.
Right.
So and I didn't do that. So that was me not prioritizing. I'm definitely going to try again this week. But man, honestly, we can be transparent on it. I just wasn't feeling it, man. I just really wasn't feeling it. I was like, okay, I have time to go watch this Marvel movie, but I really need to do this Bible study. And I was like, movie wins. And so that's where it was.
Yeah.
It's like that sometimes. You get to try again next week.
Yep.
So there you go. Tiff, how did you do?
Well, I tried. So I think I said my goal last week was I was going to run a mile. I haven't been running in a while, and I was going to try again. I have discovered that I'm just not as young as I used to be. And I used to, with no training or anything, no stretching, just break out into a run. I mean, I wasn't the best runner, fastest runner, or anything like that, but I was just able to run. It's like, I think I gave it a solid 5 minutes yesterday, and I was like, no, we're just going to walk. So I did end up walking about 3 miles, so that was good. So I did some form of exercise, but I did not complete the goal that I set for myself, which was to actually run the mile. So I failed, but I also succeeded.
I saw you out there. You gave it a good try.
Yes.
I know you don't really like the outside, but you hung in there.
Yes, that's progress for me, because I hate the outside.
So I had said I was not going to do any self-care because of my defense. So I think my self-care happened after. So I didn't really do anything. I just ate bad and laid around. And I'm paying the consequences for the eating bad now. So I'm going to get back on the horse. But I'm very thankful to be done with that defense and to be almost done with my program. And I just appreciate y'all's support and all the love I got over the weekend. So yeah.
Yeah, we're super proud of you. After earning a doctorate, you can take a few days off. So.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, do you want to kind of give us more of an introduction into our topic today?
Most definitely. So, last week we talked about, COVID-19, Corona, the Rona, whatever, and we started talking a little bit about whatever you want to call it now. That Rona. And we started talking a little bit more about those health disparities. And so that kind of got us thinking a little bit for this episode, what does it mean now to be Black during these times? With the, in the forefront of the news, we hear about Breonna Taylor, we hear about Ahmaud Arbery. And, you know, what does it mean for us as Black folks to be in these Corona times? Plug for the title.
Yeah.
What does it really mean? Like, is there a double standard? Is there, you know, when it comes to social distancing, is it, you know, can we do some of the same things as our lighter skinned brethren during this time? You know, we're outside more, we're running more, and, you know, are we able, you know, how do we feel doing all those things while being Black and having kind of that, for lack of a better phrase, a target on your back and in your front? You know, what does it mean for us? Because I think I think our experiences are different based upon your race.
Yeah. And I think it's important to say that this is just like last week. This episode could be even more upsetting and distressing to hear about. And so I just want to put that disclaimer out there that, you know, if it's tough to hear some of the things that we're going to talk about, because I know for me, I'm going to be pretty transparent in talking about how all this is impacting me emotionally and psychologically. And so I'm just encouraging folks to take care of yourself, take a step away, come back and watch it later if you feel like you are upset by some of the things that we talk about. I think my hope is that it'll be validating and normalizing for folks, because I think as people of color that we're all experiencing some level of distress anyway. But with, you know, during these Corona times, there's like an added layer. So just take care of yourselves as you listen to what we're talking about.
Right.
And I know for the past couple episodes, we've been bringing in a special guest to talk with us. But it's talking about being Black in these Corona times. We kind of feel like we're each an expert on that in our own rights. So we know we typically have a special guest here with us, but on this episode, you'll just be getting us, just our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts about various things. So we hope that's okay. The next episode, if you hang with us, we'll have a special guest to kind of chime in on some of the things as we continue having this discussion. So with that said, let's jump into it. Who wants to go first?
Let me just say, I love doing this show. I love it, but I was dreading doing this topic because it's important and we need to talk about it. And at the same time, I think as people of color, when we share our experiences, it's traumatizing and re-traumatizing, because it's tough to like really focus on it with everything going on. And I think especially with Breonna and Ahmaud and what happened, and just like with all the others, it's like another just a reminder of where we are in our country and the reality that we live in. So I'm kind of struggling today.
And, you know, for me, I've been looking forward to the episode only because I really feel like we have so many differences. And sometimes just being willing to have the conversation can help bring about change. I'm a firm believer of that. So even though it's a difficult thing to talk about, I feel like the more that we're able to normalize it, to share our feelings, to have open dialogue about these things, that it may help somebody, you know, who doesn't have the luxury of seeing it from our point of view. You know, it may help somebody else understand what we're going through, or understand why we're angry, understand why we, you know, have shirts repping folks like Trayvon Martin on them or whatever, whereas they may not get it. It may not be something that comes naturally to them. So I'm always an advocate for having the discussion, because I just believe that conversation helps to bring about change.
Most definitely.
I hope they listening. The people that need to hear, hope they listen.
Need to.
And that's the truth, though. The folks that need to be listening don't be listening. So.
Exactly. That's my concern. Let's get the people who need to hear it. But y'all are right. Go ahead, Brent. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that was it. That was all I was saying.
Well, with that, let's start with we're going to talk about a couple of cases, not in depth, because we know you guys have been watching the news. We don't want to inundate you with facts, so we'll just briefly touch on two cases that are happening right now, one of which is the case of Ahmaud Arbery. This man was in Georgia jogging down the street. I know there have been recently stories that have come out that said, you know, they've seen him looking in houses or whatever, unfinished houses. That's important to note, that nothing was taken, nothing was stolen. He wasn't breaking any laws or anything of that nature. But he was essentially gunned down by two, I guess you would call them good Samaritans, or thought they were being good citizens. Father and son essentially tracked him down, confronted him, and ended up shooting him. And fortunately or unfortunately, this was all captured on video for the world to see. And this case of Ahmaud Arbery happened a couple months back, but it's come up now as the video has just recently surfaced. So I want to ask you guys, like, how did you hear about the case, like, first?
Social media for me. I definitely saw it on social media. And from then it was like, whoa, like, man, this is crazy. Like, this just has happened. Then I was like, wait a minute, this happened in what, February, March? What?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, whenever these things happen, my first instinct is like, no. That can't be right. That can't be right. And then, of course, it was. And so, yeah, social media for me, I get all the pop-ups. Of course, as you scroll through social media, you're going to come up against all that stuff and those stories.
That's pretty much the same. I hate to say it, but sometimes I learn about these victims because they're a hashtag. And then you got to click on that to see what the story is about. So that was the first time. I think I saw his picture and I saw the hashtag and I was like, whoa, got to look into this a little further. So knowing what you know now, like, how does it make you feel to know that this young man was essentially just outside jogging in a neighborhood, doing what normal people do, and was tracked and gunned down? Like, how does that make you feel?
So I'll speak for me. Number one, I haven't watched the video, and I won't. I may be jumping the gun as far as what
you are. You are.
What?
But for me, I'm not a big runner. Trust me, I'm not. I don't like running. I don't like cardio, but I do like to get out and do some sprints every once in a while. But it's just a reminder how, we just don't have the same freedoms. And I've talked to multiple people about this, at my job before. I work in a fairly affluent area in Louisville, and the running joke is like, there's no way I'm running, out in that area. I just won't do it. With my stature, I'm not necessarily built like a prototypical run. I'm not long and lean, so me going out there and just starting to run, in my head, even if I want to, it's like, okay, if I go out there and start running, we got all these stores out. Do they think I'm running because of
so many things you got to think about?
Are they thinking I'm running because I'm a runner? Or am I trying to get away from security? Did I take somebody's purse? Do I have, it's just so many things. So it's just like, hey man, it's just on the list of things that we just can't do. Like, there's so much more thought. There's so much more thinking that goes into just a regular, I should just be able to get out and just run on the sidewalks.
Yeah. And
and you can't do that.
I'm glad that you said that, Brandon. I want to make sure that we know, I mean, we're talking about being Black in these Corona times, but just emphasize, when we say we're not just talking about millennials, or we're not talking about young men. We're just talking about us as African Americans, of things we can't do. And that's what this brought to me. It was like, man, just another thing that I cannot do, that I should not do, because I won't get the benefit of the doubt. I won't be seen as just a runner, or you're just exercising, or you're just getting out, because of course Corona's got us all locked in. So my desire to want to get out and run or walk is probably greater than it would be at a normal time. But I just feel like now that's just one more thing I'm not supposed to be doing, because I could get hurt. I could get shot.
And we knew this before, but like I was saying, was when these stories happen, it's like a gut punch, and it's just yet another reminder, and for me, like, I have a husband and I have a 4-year-old son, and so whenever they walk out the door together, because father-son time is super important, but whenever they walk out the door, it's very stressful for me. I don't even know if my husband, I mean, I know he thinks about it, but for me, as somebody who wants him to be protected, like, it's very stressful. So I have this thing I always say to my husband, and he hates it, but I'll say, phone, keys, wallet. That's all I say. And he knows exactly what I mean. And he'll be like, oh yeah. And a lot of times he's forgotten one of them. Now I say phone, keys, wallet, mask. And even that is stressful, because when all this with COVID started, I knew that there was going to be issues with Black people, especially Black men wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I thought, we have to, we're in a space where we have to decide if we want to protect our health or protect our life. It's like, if I go into the store and there's somebody that don't like to see this Black man covered, is somebody going to be approached? And that there have been cases where that's happened. So I saw an article recently where they were given pointers about, if you're a Black person and you're going out with your mask, this is what you need to do. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. We shouldn't have to do that. So
it's funny that you said that, because, when we got to the point where they said everybody can wear a mask, and of course we're in a shortage, so you may have to make your own mask. One of the things they did was like, you can make a mask out of a bandana. And I was like, oh, no.
No.
We can't do that. We can't.
And that goes back to, I think, how important it is to talk about how, like, these structures and these institutions that are meant to protect us and teach us and how to take care of ourselves, they don't take our unique needs into consideration.
Yeah.
Don't tell me as a Black person, like, to put a bandana on my, come on. Think about cultural differences.
As Black folks, because we live this 24/7, 365, we try to, I'm gonna speak for me. I try to bury it. And so, because if you always think about this, you go crazy. And, if you always think about this, you go crazy and you'll just be angry all the time. And I don't want to live my life like that. I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to be angry all the time. And so we know all those things that we have to do. But sometimes we get kind of, we get in a space where we can be like, okay, let me get out there and get my jog in. But now that that's come out, it's been like, I don't even want to go out there and run. Like, I don't even want to go out and walk.
Why y'all think I'm staying inside?
But it just brings it. It's all back here, and then when a story like that comes out, it's like, zoom, right up here. Right. And it's like, And for me, I know this. It's gonna little by little, it's gonna go back, and then I'll feel in a slightly different space to be able to do certain things, and then there's gonna be something else, and it's gonna be like, zoom, right back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there was it's not interesting, but there's a statistic out mapping police violence. So Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by the police. And we comprise approximately 24% of the police killings, while making up only 13% of the population. That is staggering. And I think, there's a disconnect there. I think the people in power, I think white people I think the tendency is to blame it on us and the things that we're doing or not doing, without acknowledging the oppression, like the historical and generational oppression that has plagued our communities. And that doesn't feel good as a Black person we're all 3 professional people.
Yeah.
And we're not more worthy or more acceptable or more important than anybody, right? But like, it's just, we have the same worries as everybody else, and it's tough. It's tough to deal with that every single day.
Yeah. I want to backtrack a bit, because Brandon mentioned something that I was going to ask about when we're talking about the case of Ahmaud Arbery, who, interestingly enough, was killed by, I think, a former police officer. Did you happen to watch the video? I know what your answer is. I know what you're going to say.
Who, both of us?
Both of you. Both of you. No, to both of you. Yeah. So why I did so, but why did you all not watch it?
For me, it's just another form of trauma. I don't think I've watched. I think the last video I saw was Eric Garner getting choked out. And I think that was the last one. Then after that, I was like, that's it. I'm not watching anymore. I'm just not going to watch, because it's bad enough to read, and it's just even worse to just watch those things. Like it's enough. You know, I still have to live. I still have to process. I still have to, be a father. I still have to be a husband. I still have to be a co-worker. I still have to do all of these things. And if I see that, I'm just very possible. I could just be angry for just no reason and just snap. I just don't want to, I think it's good enough for me to know that stuff is happening. I don't necessarily need to see it for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. I don't watch those videos anymore. It's too hard for me. For all the reasons that you said, I, as a therapist, I treat racial trauma, which is hard to even say. How do you treat racial trauma? Because it's happening all the time. There's no safety, very little safety. And I can't put myself in that space. So no, I decided not to watch it.
I am the minority in this group because I did watch it, and it wasn't for entertainment purposes or anything like that. It was mostly because I'm kind of seeing is believing for me in these cases, just because I have such a hard time understanding how somebody not doing anything, not bothering anybody, minding their own business, can do things correctly or be doing what normal people are supposed to do and still end up getting killed. So for me, it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
It couldn't have happened,
Right.
because it could happen to so many of us. There is nothing different about Ahmaud Arbery's story, that it couldn't be any one of us just running down the street, jogging, something that you do all the time in your neighborhood or the community. And for someone to run up on you and decide you're doing something wrong. You're not supposed to be here. You must be doing something that you're not supposed to do, and decide that they want to take law into their own hands. So for me, it was like, I just can't believe somebody would actually do that. It doesn't there's no common sense or anything that leads me to think that was a logical turn of events that would have wound up with him being dead.
And that's the crazy thing. Like, from the details that I've read, I have done the exact same thing. I have walked in, I have gone into new construction homes, and what's going on in here? This is gonna be nice. Man, that's gonna be nice. That there's new construction in my neighborhood, and so when I'm taking the kids for a walk, the kids get up a little bit closer, and we peer in and do this, that, and the other. But it's just like,
yeah.
That made it difficult.
That kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, separately, Tiff, about racial bias, and depending on who sees you, you have to think about, like, what kind of images have they seen of Black people? What did their parents teach them about people of color? Because I think there's a certain narrative that people have about certain racial groups, and if you're ignorant enough, then you're not going to be able to think through and think logically, like, should I leave this person alone? What are they doing? Like, should I gun them down? So I think, like, bias is such a big thing, because you're not aware of it, and yet still it dictates how you treat people and how you decide who's worthy to live or to be in a place and who isn't.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said, like, that your bias kind of impacts how you treat people. This case is still evolving. Like, a third person was just arrested like a week ago, having connection to this. But as facts about the case have been coming out, the two people that are already arrested, the father and son, made a statement asking people not to rush to judgment on them. And I was like, the irony and the audacity.
You rush to judge.
But you ended somebody's life.
Whole life. Their whole life. Off your judgment.
Can't do it. I just, no, we're not doing this.
Off your judgment. So why are these two white men supposed to be afforded more comfort and mercy and grace than this young black man?
Do we have time to talk about white privilege? Do we have
don't.
time to talk about
the privilege?
Do we have time to talk about white supremacy? Do we have time?
No.
It comes down to the fact.
How dare you?
No,
How dare you?
Folks that think that way are sympathizers with these two men.
Mm-hmm.
They value their lives above ours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why folks say Black Lives Matter. That's why we get involved in these movements, and you know, we're out here protesting. It's because we feel like our Black lives don't matter.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. Let's even just take that for a second about how we are covered in the news. You know, when a Black person is killed in cold blood like that, they want to villainize the person who was murdered. Oh, well, you know, back in 1984, they stole a T-shirt once. Like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? It's like you have to justify the killing of this individual as opposed to focusing on this person who did this terrible act. Even like how our bodies are splayed out for like on TV when we're killed, how they show that on TV, just no respect, no dignity. But when white people are shown, there's a nice little blanket, and I don't want nobody to be shown. I don't want nobody to be shown in that way. But there is there's a stark contrast between how we are treated, even in death, and it's traumatizing.
I'm so glad you said that. That's a wonderful transition to another case that's happening here locally for me and Brand, who are in Kentucky, the case of Breonna Taylor. This is a young woman who was a victim of a no-knock warrant given to the wrong address by LMPD. And she was sleeping, and her boyfriend in the home shot back at the officers because he thought it was a home invasion. Why not defend my home if nobody has announced themselves and said who they were, right?
Yeah.
But when Simone said, like, these cases of the victim getting just laid out there, you know, Breonna Taylor is dead and gone. Gone for like a couple months now. And a few weeks ago, one of the news outlets here released her entire personnel record. Like,
how is that relevant?
What does that got to do with what?
And they got such a backlash from it that they
such a backlash.
Like instant. Like as soon as they dropped that and let that news story as far as like her employment history and everything like that, people went to town. And
the two things don't correlate. Like, she got killed. That has nothing to do with what kind of employee she was or what kind of personnel history you can pull up on her. She got killed in her sleep. Talk about things we can't do. I can't even be sleeping in my house.
Can't even sleep in your own home.
Man,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But it goes back. It goes back to what Simone was saying. It goes back to they want to rationalize why it's okay. And if we can make that person seem bad enough, then maybe they deserved it somehow.
Maybe we're doing a public service.
Doing that, and you may have some folks of the lighter complexion that may be like, oh man, that's crazy. But you know, she wasn't a good. I don't know. They he had that thing a couple of years ago, so there may be something we don't know about, and they might have pulled a gun out, and we just don't. So I think it's the mental gymnastics that people do to try to
make it make sense.
To make it make sense to them, because in your heart, you know it's wrong. And even, and I'm sorry to go off on this little bit of a tangent,
go ahead.
If you read up on slavery and the not just regular slavery, but chattel slavery and those type of atrocities that were done, there were a lot of white folks that knew it was wrong. They said it was wrong. Slave owners would say it's wrong, but they would justify it and go through the mental gymnastics by saying they're not as smart as we are. They are as equal. They aren't as intelligent. They don't have the mental capacity for so and so. So we're actually doing them a favor. And
they're subhuman.
Yeah. So we're doing them a favor by keeping them in the slavery. So we're going to keep doing all those things. And so even though, oh my gosh, I'm whipping this guy, and it just is wrong. But he before this, he was a savage in Africa. So this is better. And so fast forward, 400 years, and now it's, well, he had that drug charge 15 years ago. I don't know. He was selling cigarettes. He was selling loose cigarettes, Eric Garner. So maybe, he was breaking the law. So maybe he kind of deserved it. Okay, I feel better now.
It's that dissonance that people hold, like, in your gut that this is wrong, but at the same time you got to protect yourself psychologically and make it okay. And when you got to make a choice, and unfortunately when it comes to Black and brown folks, the blame goes on us, the responsibility goes on us, and not the oppressor. And when you were talking about that, it made me think about like what it means to be a mom. And my son, I'm biased, but he's really cute, right? He's cute. We go out, and he's very engaging. He loves to talk to people. He's all like, hello. I'm like, why are you talking to people? And I'm like, I appreciate it, but at the same time, I'm like, how much longer before he's going to be a threat? How long is he going to be cute for? Like, what's the cutoff? How much longer is it before you're going to like cross the street when he's coming or call the police on him? And so I have a really hard time, like, I'll say thank you and I'll smile, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how many more years of this do we have? And that way it's heavy on me because I can't be everywhere. And I was joking with Tiff. I was like, maybe I'll just keep him in a cocoon, like in my room. Me and his dad will protect him, but you can't do that. He's gotta live. But I don't know, Brandon, if you ever think about that.
No, all the time, because kids are, and this is a good thing. Kids are naive to those. They don't understand white supremacy and white privilege and this and the. We're now having to kind of go over some of that with my daughter, who's 6 now. And one thing, for instance, this is a good one. This just happened recently. And so we were talking to, she was joking, and she called her brother. She said, "Stop being a little monkey." And she said that because he was jumping around on everything, climbing on everything, totally something innocently. And I told her, I said, "Ava, don't call your brother that. Don't say that no more." And she was like, "Why, Daddy?" And I was like, "Ava, there are some white people who call us that as a way to insult us and as a way to demean us and to call us that's a name. So don't call your brother that." And it was like, I felt bad for saying that because at that moment I took some of her innocence away. Yeah. And now she now thinks, and now what is she going to think about when there's going to be somebody on the playground and they call her a monkey? And again, it's going to be one of those innocent type deals because kids are naive. And so, like, same thing. And my son is only 2. He'll be 3 on Saturday. But I'm not, I was just like, man, I'm just like you, Simone. It's like, in a couple of years, I'm going to actually have to have some different types of conversations with him.
Yeah. And it is, as a parent, you try to maintain that innocence and keep them safe. But for us, we can't do that because to raise them and not prepare them for life as a Black person is
handicapping them.
It is. You have to do, and it's like, when do you do that? Also, on a side note, your daughter, if somebody says that, she gonna raise up on them because that's just what she does. But not say okay, but when she really
when we prepare for these shows, we do a lot of notes in a doc that we can all open simultaneously and edit in. And last night, Simone had added this note about, when will my son go from being cute to being a threat? And in my head, I said, not long. And it hurt me to say that. And then I was thinking, I thought out loud, I told Simone this, how old was Tamir Rice? He was 12.
11 or 12?
He was 12. He was 12. And he was just being a kid, being normal, being outside, playing around. He so happened to have this airsoft gun that didn't have a plastic tip on it to indicate that it was a toy. And within seconds of being pulled up on, he got gunned down. Just 12. Just 12 years old. And that I don't, I'm the one in the group saying I don't have any children, but my auntie spirit, chipping in there. My nephew's 10. Yeah. My nephew's 10 years old. He don't got long, before you have to start watching where they go in a more like earnest effort to explain to them about their safety and how you can't be saying this or you can't be playing that way. And I agree with you all. It just takes just a little bit more of their innocence away. Like every time you have to give them a little bit more. You have to give them a spoonful of the real world, and you have to just subsequently take a little bit of their innocence away from them.
And also, in essence, teaching them that they have to manage themselves in a certain way to keep themselves safe. And they shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
Like, you have to make sure your pants are up. You have to make sure that you are saying, sir and ma'am. You have to make, and I love teaching good manners, but we shouldn't have to situate ourselves and contort ourselves in ways that are going to keep people from hurting us and our children. And so it's a very heavy thing to think about as a parent, or just as a person who loves another young person. You know what I mean? You don't have to be a parent. I think what you said is valid, Tiff, with you being an auntie and a sister.
Yeah, I think about my brothers.
Yeah. So
it's stressful, Simone.
It is so stressful. Y'all know I'm already a helicopter. I'm like, oh my gosh, you get older and older. I gotta let you out more. Okay, but I'm gonna be peering behind.
Crazy.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry, Brandon.
No, I was agreeing. I was like, yeah, being a helicopter, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think that we can't talk about this topic without talking about, racial trauma, race-based trauma, which is something that we've all three read about and know about. And I think we're going to have some slides that pop up just so folks have that resource and kind of know what it is and can talk about it. So psychological, physical, and emotional injury that's associated with enduring repeated experiences of racism and discrimination. It has a very holistic impact on the brains and bodies and minds of people of color. And this trauma can occur on various levels, on the individual level, institutional, structural, systematic level. And it, because like with other types of trauma, there's often like an ending point to it. But with racial trauma, it's ongoing. And so it's something that our systems are activated, off and on all the time. And because of that, it has like what's called, some people call it like a weathering effect on our brains and bodies. So because of that, there are mental health effects. We might be susceptible to more anxiety, more stress, depression, physical symptoms, hypervigilance, other things that are linked to race-based traumatic stress, obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, and more. So, a lot of the time when we have some of these health effects, I think sometimes clinicians, medical doctors and psychological, don't account for the race-based stress that goes along with and exacerbates some of the things that we're dealing with. And the trauma is generational, going back hundreds of years. And just as we talked about today, we often just don't get a chance to heal and recover because these racial assaults are happening all the time. And now they're all over our social media, so we see them all the time. And it's hard to cope, and it's hard to like you were saying, Brent, it's hard to not get overwhelmed. It's like, how do we still take care of ourselves and live our lives, not shrouded in anger and
that's true.
hopelessness.
It's tough. Yeah. It's tough because you have all of that, and yet you still have to interact with individuals who do not want the best for you on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. You have to interact with people who may actually want the worst for you, and you know that. And so that's tough in itself. So all those things. Did I not get the job? Was it because of my hair? Was it because of my name? Was it because of was I too loud in the interview? Was I, oh my gosh, what did I, did I not get the job for that? Did I get passed because of this? Did I get pulled over because of this? Did such talking because of that? Am I getting followed in the store because of, it's just so much. And like you said, so much day to day, hour by hour.
Yeah. And also, Simone, as you said, it's like we never really get to heal. I was thinking about before these two cases, I think the last case that was brought to my attention was the case of, excuse me if I'm saying her name wrong, Tatiana Taylor, the young lady who was killed in her home while playing video games.
Yeah.
With her nephew. Yeah. That was like one of the last cases that I heard about. And then it was like Brennan said, you get real frustrated about these things. They happen. But then after a little time passes, it just moves further and further back in your mind. And then you have this case that pops up of Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor. And although those cases had happened months before they had kind of come to our attention, there was another young man who, like, just a few weeks ago in Indianapolis, Indiana, was killed on Facebook Live, by police officers. And it's just like, I'm trying to heal from one, and here comes the other, and you try to tune it out or get away from it. But I remember, I didn't watch that video. I didn't watch the video of the young man that was killed in Indianapolis, Indiana. And it just kept popping up on my timeline. I couldn't escape it. It was everywhere. And it's like, man, how can you, if you internalize that, I could just see how those things you were listing will add up. Like with the Ahmaud Arbery, I'm now scared to go outside. I'm not going to go outside for running and exercise. Of course I'm going to develop, health disparities for that. Because I'm just sitting in my house. I'm not going outside getting sunlight. I'm not doing any activity. I'm afraid that if I go outside, somebody's going to get me. It builds up.
And I think the closer the incident has occurred, like with these two cases we're talking about today, it's all over the news. There's new findings coming out. So every time I hear it, it's like bam, bam, bam. And you're right, Brenda, as the days go on, hopefully nothing else will happen, nothing else will pop up, and so you get a chance to kind of get in the swing of things. And at the same time, we are very resilient people. Like we have to be resilient, or we wouldn't be here.
Right.
And so I think it's really important for us to think about and talk about like coping and self-care. In no way am I the expert on any of that, because like I said, with other types of trauma, there's often a beginning and an ending point, and with this one, it's ongoing. So, thinking about race-based trauma, any kind of like the idea of being inactive or being in isolation or withdrawing can lead to that hopelessness and helplessness and that anger. And so it's really important to connect with your community, whether it be a church community, your spouse, your friend group. Like we need each other. Like we grew up in church together. So our faith, I'll speak for myself, my faith helps me during this time. I wonder if any of y'all can attest to that, if connecting with your supports or other coping skills that you've used.
Yeah. I'll say that when the case of Trayvon Martin happened, I think that impacted me very deeply. Like I didn't know about the case when it occurred, but I knew about the trial, and I watched the trial all the way through. And when that verdict came back that he was not guilty, it hit me different. It was just like, wow, are you serious? All these facts, all this information, and that's where we're going to land with this. So for me, it was like, what can I do with this anger I feel, or this like sense of not being heard? So I started getting involved. So that was one thing I did. So, buying the shirt to support the person and support the company that gives proceeds to families who are in this is one thing. But then also, like, I went to a vigil for Trayvon Martin that was held in Louisville. Then I started trying to get more involved in Black Lives Matter as much as I could, or when things come up that I can try to involve myself in. But just trying to be more of an advocate. Like when stuff does come up, instead of just scrolling past it on social media, like actually sharing it or reading the case or signing the petition. Again, trying to embrace that community of people who like understand what I'm going through, who know this pain that we're feeling.
Mm-hmm. 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 So for me, what I did is very similar to you said. You know, we always knew a lot of this stuff, and for me, it was Mike Brown. You know, that actually happened on my daughter's birthday, August 9th, and kind of going through all of that. So yeah, you become a little bit more diligent and vigilant in a lot of those things. But it also made me realize that I could do more than, like you said, to buy the T-shirt, buy the hoodie, and, you know, all those types of things. And so, you know, with the help of actually the two other people that are on here, we started doing programs. You know, we've done our Get Moving program for our church to kind of reach our community. So that's what we wanted to do. Even in my job is to help underserved populations. That's what I do day in, day out. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do to kind of help out and to do better. Not to say it's what I'm doing now, what we're doing is going to erase it, but I wanted to, you know, try to make a difference. And if we could just help one person, then it makes everything clear. I became really mm-hmm. more Afrocentric. My family and I, we try to buy Black. That's our thing. Like when we try to buy anything, we search and see if it's a Black business that does it first. And if they are, that's what we're going with. If not, all right, we go through the normal channels or whatever. So, you know, really just trying to put our money where our mouth is, really trying mm-hmm. To help the community out, not, you know, with our time and our energy as well, to really kind of to have that sense of community, to really pull together and to have that space as well with our people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like what we're talking about is taking up more space, because for a long time it's been, you know, you speak when spoken to, you know, as a person of color. And I feel like now we're becoming more empowered and we want to take up more space. At Spalding, I started the only successful group therapy situation that we had at Spalding, which was a Black women's empowerment group, and had a racial trauma center, the Collective Care Center, which there's going to be a slide I'm going to share with y'all too. I was the first therapist there. I didn't start it. My colleague Truman Harris started it, but I was the first therapist there treating activists who are, you know, fighting the fight every day. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a whole dissertation about race-based trauma and studying activists and trying to start the conversation about how they can take care of themselves better because of the burnout that they experience doing what they do every day. So I think what we're all saying is being active, being a part of the conversations that are important to you and giving back is helpful. And it increases that feeling of control that we really need to function. Mm-hmm. Just some other things I'm going to put this up to, creating boundaries with how much news you take in. It's okay if you can't, if you don't want to, if you want to disable,
turn it off.
You ain't got to look at the You can decide from 2 to 4, I'm going to get my news. And after that, I'm done with it. Mm-hmm. We talked about being active in conversations that matter. So supporting victims in some way, being vocal on social media so people can see how you feel and like your stance. Also eating, sleeping, like all those self-care things, maintaining your hygiene, go to therapy group, something, talk to somebody. Those are just a few that I came up with. Can y'all think of any more, or maybe talk about some of those things that have been helpful for y'all that I listed?
I'll personally say, as far as not how much news you take in, I used to be a news junkie. Mm-hmm. I was watching CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, listening to NPR, doing this, doing that. I want to be like, I want to know everything. And then it's like, no, that's just too, like, at this point now, like, I'll go a couple days and not really, look at the news. And then I'll do like a little bit of a download and be like, all right, let me look and see what's going on. And that's for me. Like, I don't even taking it off of, stuff that happens in our community, when it looks, even like with the coronavirus and everything like that, I'm not even looking at that stuff on the daily. It's because it's too much. It's too much. And we have access to so much information now, and that it's just overload. And so, like, somebody might send me a document and I'll be like, okay, file that away for till tomorrow. Like, I won't even look at it. Just okay.
Right. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. That's also going to be just whenever we're talking about mental health stuff, we always put up some kind of resources, so that'll be up there for folks, for you all to see as well, about how to get connected if you want to talk to somebody. If y'all want to transition now, we can talk about how we're going to take care of ourselves, because this is heavy.
Yeah. I was going to say, take a deep breath, everybody. Take a sigh of relief. We kind of made it through this.
We did make it through.
So, yeah. We talked about our feelings and, got it out there.
Fears. And a little anger in there, but I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm going to go eat some cake after this.
I'm going to go finish one of my Marvel movies after this.
So how y'all going to take care of yourselves this week?
I think I'll go first. This week, I think I'm going to try to do what you all just talked about, turning the news off a little bit more. Just in addition to the stuff that's coming out about these cases, and every news channel is saying the same thing, I'm just also tired of hearing about Corona. So I want to turn off the news and kind of take care of my mental well-being and not listening to so much. I just listen to Uncle Andy and Uncle Andy alone.
Breonna, you want to go next?
For me, it is, so with everything that's been going on, my house sometimes feels like the walls are closing in on me, because, there's work at the house, the kids are at the house, everything is going, the house is just everything. Everything used to be, kids had their school, daycare, and everything. So the house is turned into school, daycare, office, everything. So I don't have very many places to go to be kind of centered into myself. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time going into my safer space. And for me, that's my office. Nobody really comes into here, especially after the kids go to bed. So spending some time in the office and where it's a little bit quieter, maybe doing some reading, going back into that devotion deal, hitting that up maybe before bed or before, right after I get up, but really spending some time alone.
Nothing wrong with that.
in a quiet.
It's hard to do.
I don't know, Brandon. You might have to do what we did. Simone and I have both taken social distance walks by ourselves, so that might be something you have to do.
Yeah. That's definitely good. The one thing I do like about the office is that we have 2 kids, a dog, and everything like that. Places get messy, and mess to me, if it's clutter, it clutters my head as well. And that's, Tiff, I know you feel me on that.
I feel that, Brandon. We are.
Feel me on that.
Listen.
Notice I didn't say, Simone, you feel me.
Simone doesn't understand us.
No, you don't feel me. So
Tiffany has OCD, which I can help her. I can. And then there's Brandon, who's probably right here with her. I'm down here. You gotta have a little clutter every now and again.
But my office is clean. Going someplace where it's clean, where things are put
in their place.
Put in their place, and that's going to be important for me.
Preach, Brandon. Say it.
Whatever. Y'all's killing this. I think mine is going to be to get back on track with my eating, because I really did go hot. Like that hamburger I said I wanted the other night, I had it. I had all kinds of stuff. And so it makes me feel a lot better when I'm eating a little bit cleaner. So I think that I think financial wellness is self-care, okay? Because we've been spending.
Yes, sir.
Just because we've been in celebration mode with the defense. So I think we're going to cook more at home and spend more time, like, just trying to make some recipes and do better in that way. So that'll be my self-care. And I'm still going to try to get out at least once by myself.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
We're coming to the close of our episode. And if you guys hung with us for episode 4, you know this one's a little bit longer than the ones we've normally done. It's not very much, just a little bit. I think we kept it under an hour. But the topic of race is just really important. It's a good discussion to have. And we're actually going to do a part 2 of this next week. Not this exact same topic, but still just talking about race relations during these corona times. So we hope that you'll tune in with us next time. In the meantime, please continue to like, continue to share, continue to subscribe, tell your friends about it, comment. You know, we are loving the support.
What you want to hear?
Yeah, let us know what you want to hear. Yeah.
Yes.
But until then, stay safe in these corona times.
Be safe, folks.
Yeah, wash your hands. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.